Well, alrighty then, let's get underway. Just want to introduce myself. My name is John. I'm Dark Viking and working on Iron, getting ready for our beta coming up next month. So let me get Iron started here.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
And we had some kind of an intro
I've
audio
just picked
there.
up a fault in the
Ha.
AE35 unit.
Okay, I can actually hear it myself.
It's going to go
Um,
100%
so anyway,
failure
getting ready
within
for our
72
beta.
hours.
Oh, I should mention first off, Happy Mother's Day, everybody. I know every programmer in the world is online now or playing video games, but we do think of our mothers on this day. So Happy Mother's Day to everybody. We do have our beta release coming up next month, and so in preparation for that, we are putting together um, a number of different how-to and help items. So what I'm going to do right now is do some recording, do some raw capture, and see if we can piece together from that some of the help and how-to video content. Always important, documentation, and we just want to make sure down the road that we do some good. So bear with me. Some of this might be kind of funny. Some of this might be a little bit dull. It's almost kind of a behind the scenes. How do you put some of this stuff together? And our hope with Iron is that our little how-to and help videos will be fairly short, pretty distinct, very specific topics. And what I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to go a little bit further while I'm doing this and describe some of Iron's mottos and what we're striving for in a new text editor. Which always brings up the question is why are we making a new text editor? And as we go through here, doing some of this, I'm sure those points will, or some of the points that we cover will answer that question. Mostly we're trying to make things that are fun and easy and not having just boring tools. So let's talk about the first one. I'm trying to shake out the cobwebs again. It's been a while since I've done any streaming, and I'm gonna have to enunciate today. And since we're recording, excuse me. Yeah, I got a frog in the throat. Since we're recording, I'm gonna turn off the camera, and that's for a reason. So as we make recordings and show examples, if we need to re-narrate or retime the videos, I don't have to deal with um, trying to line up my lips and I do lip sync or anything silly like that. Excuse me again. Okay, so um, starting. Oops, I was in the wrong app. All right, so didn't mean to do that. So now back onto Iron. Just another mention that I usually spread out. I believe in acreage when editing, and so trying to stream from one screen gets a little confusing, a little confined for me. But that's just personal stuff. Um, so I want to talk about the escape key. There's a number of things in Iron that we're kind of doing differently than other text editors, and we're hoping that this will work for programmers and other programmers, beginners and seasoned folks alike. Tends to work well for me, but I'm an audience of one, and so I am really looking for feedback from folks. Which reminds me, I should start up a separate chat session. Give me a second here. Chat. Let's see. Gotta remember how to do this. Oop, I'm getting the ad because we're not yet paying members of LiveEdu, but
that's why there's a
bound to happen.
nationwide. They help protect and grow your many sites. Nationwide is on your side.
Again, I apologize. Kind of busy at the moment. Let's see. Still trying to find this chat list here. Hang on. See it, but I should be able to tear it off. Here we go. Sorry for the pause. That's what I was looking for right there. And I'm going to move it off the screen. So, welcome. Might as well bring this on the screen. Happy Mother's Day. Anyway, I just wanted to get that into the chat for the record, so to speak. Okay, so I was talking about iron, and we're trying to strive for a consistency that might be different than other text editors. And one of them is the escape key, and this is one of the first things that new users are encountering iron are going to have to kind of get under and understand, and that's the escape key. We typically just think of the escape key as canceling or exiting pretty much everything. So if there's an audio clip playing, or if there's a pop-up like the command palette here, this red thing, if you hit escape, it goes away, it cancels that. So other dialogues as well. Oh, I need to, you can see I'm a little bit disorganized, but that's probably just going to be the normal thing. I wanted to make sure I check everything in before we get going. There we go. And again, I apologize, some of this is happening off screen. So yes, the exit key pretty much is used for canceling everything: audio, pop-ups, dialogues, and selections, and even iron itself. And I can show you an example of how iron does that. So if we use the command palette here and we set up exit on escape toggle, it's long-winded, equals true. Okay, and then we hit escape here. Goodbye iron. Now that's not really useful in a real world editing, but it works here. For like example, when I start up, why are we taking so long? Oh, you know what? I haven't yet compiled. No, it says it is. Why is it not starting? Okay. I know what's going on here. Again, some of this is happening off screen, and I apologize. Is the development build of iron is refusing to start, and let's fix that problem. So I did some changes, and I have to go back, and I'm just gonna start up fresh, and we're gonna remove this one there, these files. Yeah. And iron is starting up on the other monitor.
It is dangerous to remain here. You must leave within 2 days.
And here's our command palette. I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to do some settings. Turn off the menu, set up the find in files, and actually I'm going to turn the stats off. And let's go ahead and we're going to increase the font size. catching up with my notes. Let's do iron pane. So there's some bigger fonts there. And we'll be getting really big, so in fact, let me do that in a non-debug build.
Everything is going extremely well.
Okay, so we just grow it fast. And it's a little too big. We'll go down to one screen. And it's still a little bit big. Okay. Just so you're not confused, I know it is confusing. I'm using kind of this blue, and if I open up that same file, iron pane, you can see I use this funky kind of rainbow. These are old color combinations that got ingrained into me. They're kind of rainbowish. And so anyway, when I'm building iron while using iron. And so that might get a little confusing to you. And the way you can tell the difference is, one, this font, we're going to be a lot bigger, and the white outline is kind of the test. The background is white, and I'm using a different color scheme, something more akin to what you might see in Sublime Text. I think it's their Molokai colors. Okay, so. And this is a little bit big for me. And let's go back to our script. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I just want to do some recording, some quick examples of what kind of escaping that iron does and what kind of canceling. So here we have an example of, here is the build pane, here is the command palette, and then there are some other pop-ups that come along. And we also have these things called flings. They're just notifications going on. You can see that. So if I get a bunch of these going and I hit escape, they go away. So if audio is playing and you want it to stop, just hit escape. I can give you an example of that. So, and I can't hear it myself the way the video capture is working out, but if I just try to search for stuff and it says, some kind of message, so it's playing, I believe, and I hit escape, and it'll escape the audio or stop playing the audio. Other kind of dialogues, like if I go down, open up a file that's checked in and I try to edit the file, of course we get the Windows dialog that comes up, and if you hit escape, which equates to cancel. So cancel, quit, escape is what the escape key is used for. And what I'm going to show here a little further on is that selections are also canceled by the escape key. And we'll get into some detail on that. Close that. Let's close that one for now. Okay, and that may or may not be enough on recording on that. It's not a very good example. I'll probably have to go back and re-narrate that, but this recording is kind of an experiment in a way too, in that I'm just I've got the topics I need to cover. I don't have a script, not a word-for-word script. I find I don't do very well with that. It's kind of difficult and comes up dead and flat. So this is an experiment. I'm gonna have a drink of my soda here. All right. So all these different kind of escapes, when it comes to turning things off, and it gets intermixed with, I'm dealing with escaping selections or multi-selections, this sort of thing is, well, what escape? What is escaping? What's the order? What happens? And how does iron decide which thing to stop and which thing to escape? Well, that's been a good question. So the answer really comes up, it's up to the user. I provide a scheme that tends to work good for me. As you can see, when I hit escape, the current pop-up goes away. If there's another pop-up, it goes away. Eventually, it comes down to if there are selections and I hit escape, it cancels the selection. So I've got multiple selections here. If I escape again, it's going to cancel this little caret, which is a null selection or a non-selection. That one goes away, so the other selection becomes primary. I just keep hitting escape, and it goes away. And if I hit escape one more time, iron itself goes away. So like I said earlier, here comes the audio bit, and I'm going to cancel that. Whoops. See, that's why I want to... Escaping from iron is helpful when you're debugging, but not so much when you're trying to do work. So I'm going to go back up and turn this off. So now when I hit escape, all right, iron doesn't exit. So let's take a look at the key map, the iron's key map, and it's in this file called iron.keymap. And the escape information is right here at the top. You can see I've got a key map. Key map file is composed of a bunch of different key maps that you can turn on and off. And that's just checking out the source code. So I can change it to being false and disable this entire section here. Wouldn't want to do that for the escape. It's hard to, it becomes really hard to do anything if you can't hit escape. And fortunately, it's located well on a keyboard, the escape key. You can reach it and hit it and be sloppy, and I use it quite a bit in iron. I'm not sure how that's going to work for people with the new MacBook Pro. We'll see if there is some alternative that may work. I'm wondering how not having an escape key on that keyboard is going to work out for folks anyway, with all the other apps that kind of rely on the escape key. It's a bit of a criticism, but it's a good experiment. I hope it works for Apple and that there's a good way for iron to be used on a MacBook Pro in the future. Somehow, we'll find a solution. Anyway, so what happens here in a key map is, excuse me, let me start over. So what happens here in a key map is, as you type characters, iron is trying to match the combinations of what you've typed or what keys you're holding simultaneously, and then do the appropriate action. So for example, Alt F4, it's going to do the command quit. So if I hold the Alt key and I hit F4, iron's going to quit. Here it's asking, you haven't saved the file that you've changed. Do you want to? Let's go ahead and save it. And then I'm going to restart iron.
Just a moment.
So Alt X will do the same thing. And here you can see we've got escape, escape, escape. So first thing iron is going to do, it's going to do it in order from top to bottom. And that's kind of the precedence order, is it's going to find the first match. And so when I hit escape, what it's going to do is it's going to match this key binding with the escape key, and then it's going to check the context. That's this first statement, up to the first semicolon. It's going to see if this is going to return true. If it does, it's going to do actually execute statements. This is like a little mini macro where there's a context or some tests that go on, and then there's an actual action. I'll give you an example. Let me bring up a pane with the status in the lower right. You can see down here, this is the status window. And so if I get a bunch of notifications going, I don't have the audio going. So when I hit escape, it's going to try to cancel an audio, and the audio is not playing. It's the return value of this call is false. So since it's false, it doesn't execute this. And the whole statement, this whole binding on this line comes up false. So iron is going to continue to find a match for that escape key. So it's going to encounter this second line, and it's going to match the escape, and then it's going to try to cancel notifications, the 3D flings, these things here. So it's going to try to cancel those, and then it's going to output a status message called canceled notices, and you'll see it down here in the lower right. So let's get some of those flings going, and I'm going to hit the escape key. Fling, 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 and escape. Okay, and you can see down here, it's a little bit scrolled off. It's a current bug with a large font size. So there's the action, and I'm wondering if I've spelled canceled right. I think there are actually two ways to spell canceled. Happy Philomel. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here. I don't feel so alone anymore. Little by little, we'll grow an audience. That's the idea. If folks can share our project and our upcoming beta and whatnot, please do. We certainly want to build some enthusiasm. So anyway, that's an example of what's going on inside of Iron when it comes to matching keystrokes and key combinations. There's an order of precedence from top to bottom. And the first matching key binding that executes entirely successful, the entire line executes successfully. That's when the matching of the keys or the key combo ends. So, for example, let's do file tabs, mouse movement. Mouse movement is this kind of thing. That's just momentum scrolling up and down. So if I'm screaming through and I press the escape key, it stops. All right. So that's what this line is about, is canceling the mouse movement. All right, this line right here. And then there are a bunch of other actions that can happen, and one of them is this long line here deals with canceling selections. So selections, as I mentioned earlier, are canceled by hitting the escape key. That cancels it. And with this long line, let me get down to a single pane here. I'm actually going to squeeze down the text. Maybe we can get it all on one screen here. I usually work in a size quite a bit smaller than this, so it's kind of funny to me. I feel like I'm holding a big box of crayons and I'm writing with crayons with both hands. It's kind of a funny thing. Okay, so the key binding, if none of these things are being canceled, the audio, notifications, file tabs, these guys up here are actually animated. They'll slide back into place. You can cancel that as well. They don't do it for very long, and you might be able to cancel one, but it can be handy. There's actually just between you and me, there's actually a bug in this file tab system where this file tab will just kind of sit off screen and never stop animating. So I kind of needed to, just for completeness, add this one line to cancel the file tab. So anyway, as I was saying, if you hit an escape key, it doesn't cancel an audio, doesn't cancel a notification, a file tab action, or some kind of mouse action, it'll finally get down here into the selections. And it'll go through, and the first thing when you hit an escape key is it'll take a look at the file name. Is the file in the current pane empty? In other words, there's nothing in the current pane. And then in this language, in the languages that I write, not is often just a function call. It's not a piece of Boolean magic. It's actually a function call. So as long as the file, and all this is doing is testing to see that there is something loaded into the window pane, and then it checks to see, is the current mode none? So, selection is mode in the current pane, none. And it's only checking for a single selection to answer this question. And then it knots it. So it wants to make sure that there is a selection, and there's only two. If it's not none, it's going to be a column selection, or it's going to be a line selection like this. And then, so if it is none is when it's just a caret like it is now. There's no selection going on. It's just a caret, so that's a none selection type of none. So once there is a selection, and it is a column selection or a line selection, it's going to execute this little piece here. And so what it does, selection, set the selection mode in the current pane to none, and only do it for the single selection. Okay, so that's what's going on here. As I demonstrate, here's a column selection. It's going through and it does all those checks, and finally I hit escape. It changes the selection to none, just back to a caret. And then failing that, it kind of does these things. If there's a multi-selection, and I'm not going to go very far into this explanation here, and I've got multiple selections, the first thing when I hit an escape key now, this selection, it's checking the current single selection, is not none, so it's going to cancel the selection, turn it into just a caret, all right? And then now when I hit escape, I've actually got, it's going to match the escape. There is a file loaded into the current pane, and then it's going to free a selection. It's just going to free a single selection, which is the current one, the primary selection. So now when I hit escape, this caret's going to go away, and the previous selection, this blue box here, this column selection here, is going to become the current selection. Okay? And that's what happened. So that freed, it passed, it got through all of these without matching, got through this selection. It didn't have a column or line selection to cancel. So then it freed the current selection, which was just the caret. Okay? And this thing action continue. What it's meant to do is just, it's kind of like a no-op. It's a null function. And the idea of this is that now that if it doesn't free anything, so like I've got nothing to free, there's no selections, it won't delete the last caret, the last selection. And instead it'll continue on and say, hey, take a look at the current pop-up. Am I in a current pop-up pane? And it's kind of like, yes. So when I hit escape, Iron's going to not match any of these things until it gets to is pop-up. And it is. So then it's going to do a pane escape, which is escape the current pane. Okay. Then if I have multiple panes being displayed, let's see if I get some others here. I'm trying to remember, not that one. There's some esoteric ones that I don't use very often. Let's see, that's not it. Okay, exploding pipes. See, that's kind of the joy of Iron right now, is some things will crack you up just out of the blue. And man, if that will keep me programming longer into the middle of the night when my brain is dead, and if something will make me chuckle, I can go just a little bit longer. Programming should be fun. Anyway, back to the explanation. So here I've got multiple panes up, and I'm going to click on the pane in the back. And what's going to happen when I hit the escape key, it's going to pass through this notification, canceling all of these things here. It's not going to cancel a selection. It's not going to free a selection. The current pane is not a pop-up, this big one in the back, and it's the big one. You can tell with the brighter outline as I'm switching from one pane to another here. So this is the current pane, is the outline. The big one in the background is not a pop-up. So pane is pop-up, and the current pane is not. So it's not going to try to close the background. It's going to move on and try to match the next key binding. So the escape key, and it's not a repeat key. That's not so apparent why that's important. But it'll try to match, is the most recent pop-up the build? Okay, so the last pop-up I was on was, this is the build pane, this is the command pane. So now I'm back to the background. So the command pane is the most recent. So this statement is saying, is most recent pop-up the build pane? And right now, if I hit escape, the answer is no. So it's not going to close the build pane. It's going to go on to the next statement and try to match it. Is the most recent pop-up the command pane? And that's in fact true. So here's the precedence order. What's going to happen when I press the escape key? In this case, it's going to do the most recent pop-up, which will be the red one here. Okay? And then what becomes current is kind of, there's an order of pop-ups. This is the most recent pop-up, so that becomes current. That may not be the action we want in the future. It probably makes more sense if it maintains the pane that you're in, but that can be added on. I'm not going to do that demo here, but it could be added on to this statement here. You know, there's a pane command. I don't know what it is offhand. I apologize. I've been working on other areas of iron for so long now. It's trying to come back to the key map is, I'm a little bit rusty with it, so I apologize for that. So anyway, you can add on additional things that should happen. You know, let me do an example here. We'll add on a notice. We'll make it a warning, just to give it a color. And let me escape that pane. I don't have a notice. Where's the notice? Okay, so it's a warning, just closing command palette, yeah, for example. And are we going to put it into the status? Yes, and we're going to make a fling out of it. And if we compile this now, say I leave off that extra parenthesis, if we compile the key map, oh wait, it's just part of this same statement. If I had left that in and compiled it, it would. Why did it say no? Boy, that's a terrible demonstration. All right. Let's add a note here. Okay. Compiling key map with an extra paren did not flag a warning. We'll just leave that there. Save that. Interesting. Anyway, so let's say it compiled. It really, let me make sure. No, it really, no, it should be there. It should absolutely be there. Why did that not compile? Yeah, that's just not right. I have a feeling it's just the message is coming up and saying there's no warnings when there actually are. I mean, I can see the discoloration here, that it's a different color. It's, you know, the text is not properly highlighted. So I think it's just this fling, the message is being, the wrong message is being displayed, and it really should be saying everything's fine or everything's not fine, and then go to, well, let me try the bookmarks and just see what I've got. Nope. Okay, so there's a little more. That's a sidebar. I just make a note of it and I'll come back to it offline. So anyway, we compiled that. That compiles correctly. And what I should see now, if I bring up the command palette, okay, and I'll bring up the build pane, and it's going to have to be, the command palette is going to have to be the most recent pop-up. So we'll go over there. It's now the most recent pop-up. I'm going to click onto the background. Now when I hit escape, what should happen is the escape key will match to this line. Okay, and it'll close the command palette, and it'll continue and issue a notice as if it were a warning, closing command palette, and we'll also see it down in the status bar. So let me bring up the status pane down here, and so we'll see the fling ready for the escape. Here it goes. Okay. All right, and it didn't do what it's supposed to. Oh, wait, because I'm doing this here in the wrong development environment. So this is the same. We'll bring up the iron key
I've just
map.
picked up a fault in the AE35
okay,
unit.
I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller.
It's going
Again,
to go
I'm already
100%
drawing with crayons
failure
with both
within
hands.
72 hours.
Okay, so here's the command. Here's the escape key. We'll compile it just to make sure. Still says no warning. Sounds like it's going to make that statement all day long. But let's set up the command palette. And that's goofy because the
It can only be attributable
cannot
to
build the
human
command
error.
palette. Of course not. Can't build
It
this
is
one either.
dangerous to remain
All right.
here. You must leave within 2
So
days.
we'll make the command palette the most recent. I'm going to click over here onto this one. This is the line that's going to be matched in the key binding. So here I'm going to hit the escape key. Command palette. Oh, okay. So that's an interesting thing. I haven't tried this, and it's an example I should have tested out. So what happened was we saw the fling drop, right? Let's do it again. We'll set up the command palette. I'm going to click to the background. And what's happening is, oh, that's pretty funny. So what's happening is it's matching this line. It's closing the command palette, making this pane current. Then it's issuing the notice. So the notice shows up in this pane. Well, we certainly don't want it to show up in the pane that's fading away, but I would think we'd want it to show up maybe in the over the main pane in the background here. Let's bring up the status bar, by the way. Let's do that. Here it is down at the lower right. I'm going to, again, shrink the text down a bit so we can see stuff. Okay, so the most recent pane, command pane, click in the background, and I'm going to hit escape. Okay, so there's the fling, the notice fell down, and over here, closing command palette showed up in the status window. So if we want to change the action here, let's do this. Let's reverse these two. So I'm going to grab this. All right. I'm going to move it over here. I'll change that. And now if I compile, it's going to take me to...
You must leave within 2
the
days.
error. I'm trying to remember what are my commands to do that. F3? No bookmarks. That's not the right one. F2. I so can't remember. Let's find out. Iron key map. We're looking at the key map. Looking at the wrong key map. Dev key map. Now there are multiple key maps in Iron, and they have an order precedence. And this key map is my development mappings, which match before the other key map, the default key map. So I'm going to find out Iron Dev waypoint, Iron Dev command build. This is what we're looking for. It's F4, 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 F4. Really? Yeah, why is that not working? So if I
It is
build
dangerous
things
to
here,
remain here.
F4,
You must leave within 2 days.
take me to the error. Well, it does on a better day, let me tell you. All right, let's go back up to the top of this. That's, okay, that's funny. Hang on, let's try it in this one. Okay, so this file should have had, are we even editing the same files? This is just preparation, failure to prepare properly. I know I'm doing a lot of rambling in this, but bear with me. It's kind of interesting, and I do kind of want to show off things. And we've got a lot of things that aren't perfected yet. You know, that's why we're trying to get our beta out there. You know, not to release, you know, buggy stuff on people. That's certainly not the point. The point is to get feedback on what works and actually doesn't work. You know, when things are actually working. You know, if that sentence made any sense to folks. You know, we want to get feedback on ideas of ways that things might work better. And this whole thing about the escape and having a sequence that the user, you as a programmer, can come in and change. It's like, well, I actually want selections to cancel, and I was going to do this demo. Cancel before. Yeah, there's just something that's no warnings. So I certainly have an error here. Anyway, let me go back to, I'm going to back up.
Just a moment.
It's just the way the brain works. It just kind of goes
I've
everywhere.
just picked up a fault in the
Fix
AE35
this
unit.
and pain. All right.
It's going to go 100%
So what we were
within
looking at
72
here
hours.
was that the warning came up in this green pane instead of in this larger background pane when I closed the command palette. And let's put the selections back where they were, this whole bit. All right. And let's compile it. I'm not sure I believe it, but it says no warnings or errors. Okay, so this is the most recent pop-up. I'm here in the background, and we hit escape. Okay, you can see this time the fling shows up here. So what happened was, I'm going to close this out, go back to one pane. What matched was this line here that we've been working with. And it said, oh, the most recent pane was the command palette. It issued the notice in the current pane. Oh, that might be an interesting addition, is to say which pane to issue the warning in. Okay, let's go back to our bugs I'll categorize later. Issue warnings, errors, info, notifications, in a designated pane. Cool. So I'll save that comment. And so it issued the notice, and then it closed the escape pane. All right, or closed the command pane. So that made the fling happen in the main pane. Let's just set that up one more time. So there's the build pane. Here's the command palette. And I've switched over to the pane in the background. So when I hit escape, the first match it's going to find will be our line to issue the warning and then close the command palette. So here comes the escape key. You can hear it. All right, there's the fling, drops off. And if we come back, we'll probably see a bunch of, the last one will be closing command palette. Okay, so that's an example of the precedence order. Iron is trying to match the escape key all the way down, including, should iron exit command, is exit on escape? Is it currently set to true? And we've turned off that toggle, so it doesn't happen. Catch the escape key with no file. So here's some cleanup piece. There's no file. So when I've got no file, for example, like over here, why did it do that? Oh, I know why. It's because, let's bring that back up.
X-ray Delta 1, this
and it's because I'm over here in this file. It matched
400
this line which said escape, no repeat, command is exit. That's because we didn't issue the exit on escape toggle equals. See our command palette? It's going to need some work because this is an awful lot of typing. Set it to false. Okay, so that's what this statement right here is testing, is whether that toggle is true or false. And I just set it to false. So this line won't match when I hit escape over here. Okay, so it didn't exit. Iron did not exit. All right. No current file, it says. So the exit is no good. It matched this statement, no current file. Okay. If I leave this one out, what I will probably get is some kind of audio warning that you can hear and I cannot. So let's go over here. We'll compile this, by the way. And then we're in the blank pane, and let's hit escape. I don't know, did you hear something? I have to look and see if the meters are moving. Try it again. Maybe not. So it really doesn't do anything, but I know we can, actually that is the right action, is it doesn't do anything. Escape never matches to anything. So there is no action. If I wanted to do that, let's do this. Copy this, change it to, since I mentioned it. Audio. Whoops, type better. Play. It's probably something like warning. That looks like it compiles. Okay, so now if I go up into this blank pane, there's no file. The escape's going to not match to any of this stuff, and finally it's going to match this last line to an empty file and play an audio warning. Let's see if that does it. I'm going to watch the meters.
It is dangerous to remain here.
Okay, I can hear it. I can see that it's going. I cannot hear what it said. It's probably some quote from HAL 9000. Let's see. Let me take a look at the chat here. Ah, LVF, I know who that is. Thanks for joining. And Archimasta, Archie Masta, thanks for joining. Pang, 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 and pang. I love it. And WebDev joined the room. Glad you folks are here. Please, just in case you're catching up with us, this is Iron, and I'm Dark Viking, and Dark Viking Software. We're putting this together, and we're getting very close to our beta release. Should come up here next month. And I'm just kind of going through, and what's happening in this stream is I'm creating videos, though I've gotten off on some pretty good tangents here. How-to videos and help videos that we'll have available in Iron documentation online and accessible to Iron itself. And they're going to come up in short little tidbits, and I don't know how that long section I just did is going to condense. I think it will be through the magic of video editing. Okay, but we're coming up with our beta and trying to get some of the documentation in place, and we're talking about the escape key, because the first thing that new users of Iron need to know is that the escape key pretty much cancels everything, and there's an order. And the order is defined in keymap files, so that can be tailored and customized by you, the programmer. And that's one of our mottos is we want folks to be able to customize our tool, or any tool really, and just make it fit like a glove so you can be the best, most proficient programmer you can be. And since the tool you're using most as a programmer, new or seasoned, is going to be your text editor. So we, definitely advocate customizing as much as you can. And what we will provide as a default will be basically what works for us. And hopefully your input, you'll be able to kind of guide us in yet a better direction for people in general. I'm a grand audience of one, so all of this has been tested and tailored to guess who, right? And that doesn't necessarily work for everybody, and so being able to change things like your key mappings become very important. We recommend it. We'll also at some point probably put out keymap emulations for other popular tools, so those who jump in from Sublime Text or Notepad or Visual Studio or whatever can basically have most of the editing capabilities that they're used to available from the get-go. That's our plan. For the beta, this is the file. It's going to be set up in such a way that I think will work for folks. It certainly works for me. And this other file that I had brought up, Iron Dev Keymap, is my personal development keymap that has precedence. So when I'm working, these things match before the default, and you'll be able to do that too once Iron is released. Probably not in the beta, however. So let's escape out of this. Oh wait, I turned that off. I'm so used to doing escape. Alt F4, like in any Windows program, definitely closes the program. But let's set this back to true. We'll hit escape, closes the command palette. Matched this line right here, the one we've been working with. And now I'm going to hit escape again, and it's going to match. Where is it? This one here. This line right here. All right, going to hit escape, and that closed the dev version of Iron. Okay, all kind of long-winded. Oh, that blink, that's a good example. I should just mention that. Well, we changed and edited this iron keymap file in the development environment, and we saved it. You can see the changes here. Notice, warning, closing, and then we had some audio here somewhere. Yes, down here. So this session of iron reloaded the file, and when it reloads a file, the way iron works is that it will fade in, just so you have kind of one of those subliminal cues.
All systems are functional.
In iron,
There is a
we
small
tend to put a
pressure leak
lot
in
of,
the aft heating unit.
let's see, so I made a change and I'm going to save the file. Okay, and we're going to exit, and you'll see the file fade in right there. It was kind of quick. Just loaded it right up. But part of changing, we try to add subliminal clues all over the place that won't necessarily be apparent to you, but do become useful. When a file is loaded fresh, it fades in. If you're just switching between files, they don't fade in. You can see the helix here now becomes the indicator that if changing from one file to another is not enough, and there's a hiccup in there that I'm chasing down, this helix will kind of be your indicator, and you can turn that off if that becomes too annoying in the mini map here. Okay, so let's go back to excuse me. So that's kind of the first thing that folks are going to encounter is the importance of the escape key. It's the way you get out of everything, including canceling selections. Which brings me to the next section here, and that's two of the big differences in iron from other text editor is that iron is a virtual space editing tool. In other words, you can go out beyond the end of the line. I don't have anything typed out here, but I can just kind of meander, and I'm going to kind of describe for those who may not be familiar with virtual space editing exactly what that is. And then the other thing we'll get into is persistent selections. What are persistent selections? Just a quick look ahead. I am not holding down the shift key as I'm changing my selection. In fact, I can type words while my selection is still there. Okay. And we also can undo all these selections and stuff like that. So we'll get into that. But these are, besides the reliance on the escape key, virtual space editing, understanding virtual space editing, and what persistent selections are going to be key to folks transitioning from other editors or just making use of iron. And it's a different way of editing if you're not used to it. So there'll be a bit of a learning curve. I don't think it's that difficult. Actually, this is what I grew up on, was using virtual space editing. And it's kind of funny that the modern tools now, virtual space editing is kind of an add-on. And it's quirky because it is an add-on, and so it's kind of funny. It's almost like it's a lost technology, and so younger programmers, the younger generation, or newbies, and I say that affectionately, don't know what to call it. It's kind of like they just want to go off here to the end of the line, so they just call it editing past the end of the line. Or I see a lot of references to that, and that's a fair thing to call it. And it's really not a new thing. In fact, it's just kind of old and seems to have been forgotten. But let me demo what's some of the differences. Let me save this file, and I'm going to bring up Notepad. And by the way, this is not Notepad bashing. Notepad, Sublime Text, Visual Studio, all these other text editors are great. They all have their place. We think we've got it with the virtual space editing and persistent selections and new ways to think about editing. We think we got an advantage for folks. Or there's other tools, but we certainly recommend use the tool that works best for you for the task that you're doing. And we're hoping that iron will become the go-to tool for everybody. um, but specifically for beginners and novices, but also for seasoned programmers like myself. We've got, you can customize Iron quite a bit, and its performance, loading large files, searching, is pretty extreme. It's like making, I make video games, or I've made video games for quite a long time, and cutting edge speed is often the focus. So I'm trying to apply a lot of that video game technology and bring it into Iron. And so seasoned programmers, as well as new programmers, can get the advantage of extreme speeds and sizes and such things. So anyway, let's take a look. I'm going to bring up, I think it's Iron Pane was where I was going to do some examples. Right on. So this is Iron Pane, and here's Notepad. So in Notepad, you can see the caret, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in a little. All right, which one was it? All right. So kind of zoomed in bigger, and you can see the caret. As I move the caret to the right, it pretty much, that's as far to the right as I can go before it just jumps down to the next line. I can't get beyond the end of the line. Now, I'm not hugely familiar with Notepad. I've been learning it. Either it has a mode or there's a plugin where I believe it will do a certain amount of virtual space editing. So you can get out here, but things get kind of quirky. So anyway, if I get out here on the end of this long, and everybody's seen this, you get out here on the end of a long line like this, and then you start just down arrowing, you can see that cursor kind of doing what I kind of refer to as the drunken cursor walk. It's like, well, where's the cursor? Back and forth, left and right, up and down. And when you see the same file in Iron, I'm out in virtual space. There's no characters out here. And the caret is not just drunkenly walking back and forth. And it's amazing when I read comments about, editing past the end of the line. That's what people kind of mention, is like, well, the cursor is just bouncing back and forth, and it really kind of it can be annoying to folks. I understand that, and others would just kind of like, it doesn't bother me a bit. I grew up with that. In my case, I did not grow up with that. I used old tools like Brief and the early versions of SlickEdit and Turbo Pascal, where virtual space editing was the technology. So for me personally, that bouncing around is rather annoying. And things that annoy you tend to fatigue you, and that's a lot of what we're taking a look at when we're putting together Iron is what makes you a better programmer. If you can program more hours, if you can go later at night and keep going because, one, you're not tired, and the other is you're enjoying the process, that's a real bonus. And we're trying to bring some of that research and that philosophy into the development of Iron. So that's one of those, it's kind of a tidbit, but not having the cursor dotting back and forth is, can be fatiguing or just confusing. It's like, where is the cursor? Well, it's way out here now. It's a mile to the right. And it's kind of, well, it's not exactly what I was looking at. It's moved and I got to go look for it. Where the hell is it? Okay, now that's taking whining to an extreme. But this is the more typical experience nowadays. This is what people are kind of used to, because Word does that, the operating systems use that, email programs don't do virtual space editing. And that kind of brings up, it's like, well, are there some advantages to virtual space editing besides just where the cursor is on, as it walks up and down? And there definitely is, and it comes in combination with other tools or other functionality that Iron offers, and we'll get into that. So the auto-annoying move to the next line. So the caret doesn't move to the next line automatically, and I might point out that in Iron, the default mode is also, it doesn't move backwards. I'm just left arrowing, and what would happen in most other text editors, as you left arrow, it just moves right to the previous line. Okay, and that's fine. People are used to that. Again, I've kind of just tailored it for me. I'm on this line. I'm working on this line. You know, I'm not looking to move to the end of the previous line. It just isn't the way I'm thinking. I'll up arrow to get to the previous line. You know, and that's where the drunken caret walk is like, no, I'm over here on the end. I don't want it to magically show up over here or magically show up here. My caret is, you know, I'm doing work out here, and when that comes in handy is when you're doing things like side comments. Okay, is you want them to be out here in the ether, and you can do selections out here in virtual space. So there's a lot of additional power here that non-virtual space editors have difficulty keeping up with. Clear that out. Let's go back down to one window here. So that's kind of just the brief. What is virtual space? It's out here on the end. And as I've got here in the notes is what are the benefits and strategies? One of the benefits is that this window pane in your text code, your source code, is really just kind of treated as a canvas. It's like, well, I don't want to have to start here to paint over here to do my work over here. I just want to click off over here in space, and that's where my side comment might go, right? You know, if I'm drawing or painting or adding things, it's kind of like, well, I'm going to put it up here, over here. I don't want to have to start on the left. It's just kind of a long travel. This is where I'm working, you know, that sort of thing. So it's just treating source code differently than prose. Oh, I think I actually have a comment lower down about that. So anyway, that's one of the main advantages is you can just, you know, if you're using the mouse, you can just click there and go there. Or if you're typing out here, you're just there anyway, scrolling up and down. You're not searching for your caret. For side comments, I've kind of demonstrated that. Don't have to tab or spacebar like mad programmers. Gosh, I want to put my comment way out here. Okay, I actually want to put it out further. It's kind of like, all right, here's my side comment ridiculously to the right. Okay, so in a standard editor, let's save that. Let's see, where's my comment? Wait, that's not the same file. Let's go to that file and make a ridiculous comment way out here. Okay, here's a ridiculous, that's just checking it out, a ridiculous side comment way out here. All right, I'm going to save that. We'll go back to Notepad. Do you want to reload the file? Absolutely. Okay, we'll come up here to where we, you know, it's kind of, wow, the comment is way the heck out here. Oops, change lines. I didn't want it to change lines. I want it to stay on the same line. That's just kind of happenstance. I want to be out here. I don't want to be at the beginning of the next line when I arrow. So if I want to put a comment below this side comment and put another one, well, let's see. What have I got to do? I got to go down to the next line, which brings me to the end of that line. Okay. Whoops. Now I'm back on the wrong line. Hit end. And now how do I get out there? Well, I'm going to have to tab, or I'm going to have to space. I'm going to have to hold the space key, or I'm going to have to tab out. Wait, where is it? There it is. That's too far. So now I'm back, and it doesn't really line up, so I'm going to put spaces. And now it lines up, and I can add a second comment. Let's save this file. A second comment. I'm not sure that's the same command that I have, so okay, it's already saved. And we'll come back to iron. And it's kind of like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Now iron doesn't quite handle, this is why we're a prototype, doesn't handle tabs as yet. We have another version of iron that we're working on where the tabs are actually handled, but this, we're kind of rolling back a little bit for the beta and not trying to release other things that are not yet ready for prime time. And tab handling, I'm really sorry to say, is not yet available for prime time. And that's why it's prototype. And we're not releasing. Okay, so let me save this file. We can see it over here in Notepad. And I must have more tabs in here somewhere. I do. Okay. So let's just go back to iron. Come over here, we'll delete those guys. Come back here in our virtual space, we'll tab over. Isn't that wonderful? Actually, that was not virtual space. That was all in normal space. Save it again. Back over to Notepad. Yes. Okay. Come out to the end of the line. There's the second comment. So you can see how much work there is to put additional comments way the heck out here in my source file. You know, if you treat it as just one big canvas, one big palette, you know, you can come out here. So if I want to add a third line, I just have to be, I'm out here in virtual space. Third comment. That's pretty convenient. You know, and it's really not that big of a deal, but it is awful convenient. So that's just one of the advantages there. One more advantage of virtual space editing is, you know, you can just, if you're working out here way off to the right, that's where you can, you know, do your work if you want. You know, you can keep typing out here and type code if you want, you know, like if whatever, new line. All right. Oh, because this is not a source file. Tell you what, let's turn this into a source file momentarily. Just pretend it's a slang file. Now you can see everything gets highlighted. And let's go down. Where's that comment? It was way out here to the right. There it is. So I can work out here if I hit return. Well, it's supposed to auto indent. Why is it not auto indenting? Oh, because there's no previous open bracket. There we go. So I can work out here, do stuff. And I'm out here in virtual space. You know, there's nothing out here. Okay. Of course, other auto indents will probably bring you out into La La Land. So anyway, let's just cut these commands, cut these things out of here. Like that. Close these off. And then so we don't have the funky highlighting, we'll just change the file extension back. Now this is what we call right now a limbo file. Is the file name over here on the right. You can see as I type things, it changes the name of the file. And then I added a file extension and that it recognizes, slang. That's the language I write in. All right, so just another tidbit. More advantages. Oh, here's an example of where virtual space editing can be kind of handy, and it goes into a larger strategy. And the strategy includes variable namings. And typically, what I find is more useful for variable names, file names, even function names, is that you kind of name things left to right, going from general to specific. And I'll show you a more concrete example of this right now, or shortly. And you tend to wind up describing things back. They go from large to small. So if you're doing a date, you know, it's the year first, the month, and the date. Things sort better. And they tend to wind up in kind of a noun, verb, adjective direction. You know, so you've got the house, the house falling apart blue. Well, it's the blue house that's falling apart, you know. But general to specific, large to small, you know, so variable names. And when it comes to dealing with multi-select and virtual space editing, these kind of pair up with function or variable names that tend to make sense. Let's give an example. So here's an example. You know, we're dealing with panes, and it happens to be the command pane. And more specifically, these are commands for the pane task. Iron is threaded. So the differentiator, the more specific thing, is the pause, the paint, capture a curtain, capture a helix. So there's two capturings going on, and there's more detail here. So as, say I want to add a whole bunch of things, bunch of new things, you know, this is kind of a very specific example, but I use it all the time. You know, and I might want to just add in some new stuff. So, well, let's just say it had capture as well. All right. And if I'm out here in normal space, trying to do this in another tool, it probably works, well, it would work fairly well. But, you know, I can capture trees, capture helicopters, you know, just, you know, capture helix. We got that one already, but a blue one versus a red one versus a round one, you know, so things become more specific. And so now I'm out here in virtual space, and I've got things that are different lengths, but I've left off this, the comma to separate these enumeration types. Now, if I were in, you know, another tool, let's save this, and can I bring it up quickly here? No, I'm not going to show this right now. You know, trying to add this comma, how would you go about doing that? All right, it is worth showing. Let's see, open. What do we got? Iron pane types. Okay, so we can see the stuff that we've partially added here. Now, I'm missing, you know, I was in such a hurry, I forgot the commas, and the compiler will come back and complain to me. It's like, well, how do I go about putting those in? Well, you hit comma, you go down a line. Now, that's convenient. Hit comma, go down a line. Hit comma, go down a line. Oops, I'm not in the right place to add a comma. You know, I hit another comma. Now I'm over here into new things. But if I, you know, it started up here, comma, down a line, over the end, comma, down a line. You know, it's tedium, small things, but small things can add up. So, you know, there may be more magic in Notepad that I don't know of. That's certainly, you know, yay if there is. You know, that's a good thing. In Iron, I'm out here in virtual space, and I've got selections, and this is just going to be a preview of more tools. As I can switch this to a multi-select situation, I can break these into multiple selections. So these are a bunch of independent selections. You can see that I can work with these separately. Okay, this is a trick I'm going to highlight later. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a shift tab. Is all my carets are going to scoot back until they can't shift tab anymore. Okay, so now they're all sitting at the end of the line, and they're all latched. So when I type a single comma, there, and then I can escape all that. You know, so that's the kind of thing where virtual space comes in really handy. It's a very specific example, but it's something that, you know, as you make enumeration types or a bunch of repeating things, that it is helpful to get out into virtual space, and it's just really a big deal once you start using it. So the benefits of virtual space for those who are coming from a non-virtual space editor, it may not be readily apparent. The benefits, because it does tie into a larger strategy, your function names, your variable names, and formatting, and, you know, just being able to come out here and put side comments. We can make you know, block comments that become much easier. Now I know there's other tools or other facilities in other tools that make whole sections and block comments easier to do. You know, you kind of make a, if I understand right. Oops, I'm undoing this. Is you can do a selection, and then there's some key combo that says, hey, turn this, what I've highlighted, or this section of code, or this level of code into a comment. So in iron, you just use multi-select, or it's actually, let me take that back. You use just regular selection. It's just one selection. So that's part of the convenience. If you want to come way out here to the end of this line, and for some reason you want to put comments on all these lines here, well, what we can do is start a comment here. I'm actually too far now to see. I can bring my cursor and extend it down this way and add side comments and type a bunch of stuff. Okay. Not a really good example, but you can change the way you format your code. So if you had a bunch of here's an example is horizontal alignment then becomes a bigger piece of what you're working with. So if I've got all these statements here, and for some reason it's like I don't want to use those anymore, I can just go in, add the semicolons and comment stuff out. Hate to say it, I do it all the time. It's kind of a very specific example, but it's very handy to do that kind of thing. And you'll find more reasons as you go along in virtual space editing to do alignments. And this is kind of weird for folks, or it may be weird, or it may seem very OCD. And I admit it really is. And programmers can actually use that to their advantage in a lot of ways. It's like when you're processing lists and you make a while loop, you tend to use the same pattern and you don't think about it after a while. So it becomes less fatiguing. And when you start coding in virtual space and you're dealing with column selections and functions and variable names that are similar, but they differ on, say, the right side, aligning things horizontally becomes much more important and useful than doing what would, you might see in other software. It might come up in this fashion, where it's just kind of, okay, I got a whole bunch of stuff and it's all jiggy jaggy and that's fine. That does work for people, but I find having more, it's an undo problem that we got, so I really can't undo it. I'm going to reload that file. Yes, we are a prototype. When you try our beta, you will come across problems, and we are looking for help in identifying what those are. That one I know, and I'm going to fix before I put it out there next month. So anyway, there as a larger strategy, virtual space editing, column selections, this idea of persistent selections, which we haven't talked about, it all kind of comes into play, but it also takes into account some of your variable naming conventions. It may or may not work for you and your team. Again, I know from my experience, it's an advantage, and I can leverage that advantage because I'm using a tool that has virtual space editing. One moment here. A frog in the throat here. Okay. And so that kind of comes down to, I already kind of demoed this when column selection is king, and formatting becomes much easier when you're dealing with column selections. And horizontal spacing has great value. And back from my graduate work at Oregon State is we took a look at the empirical programmers, some early studies by other universities. And, it's surprising the things that have value for programmers and things that don't have value for programmers aren't always intuitive. And one of the things that we learned was that chunking, breaking things into little pieces like paragraphs, or if we look at actual code, we come down here, you can see I kind of break things up vertically into chunks. So there's some meaning here. There's a comment, pane stuff, that's a chunk. Here's a chunk that's dealing with the panes, which is separate from this chunk. I don't comment greatly, but the fact that they're chunked has value. And chunking actually works horizontally as well, as we saw in, further up in this example. Oh, was it this one? This file here, where chunking horizontally. Here I've got, the variable or the enumeration names separate from this particular attribute, separate from the shortcut itself, the quoted text. So there's value. It can seem kind of subtle, but again, it all kind of adds up. So chunking is an important part of programmers coming into a code base. They don't know what it does. They're unfamiliar with it. If you can chunk your code horizontally as well as vertically, that gives an advantage to anyone working with that particular piece of software. It's again, it's kind of a minor thing, but it really does add up. And it comes to, back to fatigue. If you're trying to decipher code that swims back and forth and you got to look at it for some reason, you just have to look at it twice or a little bit harder. And you do that all day for, 10, 12, 14 hours if you program like a nut. You get subtly tired, more tired every time you have to deal with that. So anyway, that's kind of like really overstating the point. And then one final thing I'm going to talk about virtual space, as you probably have noticed, is the caret, the primary caret, never leaves the screen. You can't scroll the caret off. If I use the mouse, I can't scroll the caret off the screen. And it's, I've got kind of a demo here that will, I'm sure everyone who's worked in Word or any kind of other file is you'll get off the screen. Let's bring up Sublime Text this time. Again, I'm not bashing these other tools. These things work great. But give you the example. I can see I did a previous example. This was me warming up this morning. I'm going to get rid of that line. Actually, let's do, oh, it's just different. Okay, ignore that stuff to the right. We don't care. That's a previous example. So here's a case where you've got a bunch of lines selected, right? And then the caret is here in line 37, and I can take my mouse and I can scroll it off into space. We've all done this. It's kind of like, where is the caret? And I've got my cursor, my mouse cursor set. I'm going to start typing, and it's like, and I'm going to hit space. Well, it's like, shoot, I typed a space, and it's kind of like, well, that's not where I really wanted to be, so I backspace and do the space, or don't undo it, I actually type over the top. And then I, mouse down back to where I was, and I click over here, and then I start doing the change I meant to do. But what happened off screen, of course, is it deleted a whole bunch of lines that were up here. And it, and boy, that's just a drag. It's like all of a sudden now this module, if these weren't here, all of a sudden this module that worked just a minute ago no longer works because the inclusions are not there. The with use clauses are not there. But it looks fine. I've just fooled myself, or my editor has kind of helped me fool myself. Fortunately, you can just undo, and that's a plus. But if you save the file, or if you leave and come back, and it's kind of like before you compile it, say you go to lunch, well, you've had changes that have occurred off the screen. So one of our mottos with Iron is that really no changes will, the cursor can't leave the screen. That's an easy adjustment, I think, for people coming from other, and hopefully, people are having thumbs up in the air going, yay, finally, that makes sense, because I run in and I do that kind of stupid thing. Maybe not very often, but I definitely do it. And when things compile and they've gone away magically, that sucks. Okay. Well, let's see. Let me step out for a second. I'm kind of doing a mental break, and I can see, other folks have joined us. Well, let's see here. Ascetic. That's an interesting. Edgar, 2518, welcome. Kraken W, I love that name too. Thanks for joining us. And Warren EK, thank you for joining us. I haven't done a lot of streaming ever, and I haven't done a lot of streaming recently. I hope this isn't boring the crap out of you. And partly the whole point of this particular stream was to make little snippets for our documentation. We make little video snippets for our help and our how-to tutorials. Don't know how many we'll have by the time the beta comes out next month, but we'll definitely have something going out there and be adding to that as time moves forward. So I've been just kind of stepping back a little bit. We talked about the importance of the escape key. Just went through a long-winded version of virtual space editing past the end of the line, as young folks call it, because they haven't necessarily encountered it. Old technology that died, and our motto that the caret never leaves the screen. We don't want things to happen to our source code, our prized possession, our most important piece of work. We don't want it to happen off screen. Let's see, I have to think here for just a second here. How much more can I cover before my head explodes? Carets and virtual space. Yes, we can do this. This is all kind of interesting. So virtual space, and those who haven't used virtual space and aren't familiar with it, there are subliminal clues going on to tell you whether you're in virtual space or not. And I don't know if you noticed. What I'm going to do is something that's kind of, it's not contrived. I've actually started working on some video game-like elements for Iron. That's my background. That's where I come from. Well, also a lot of other things, flight simulation and navigation and blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the magnifying glass on. I had some toggles, some commands set up in the history. So let's set this to true. Oh, it was right below. So we got a magnifying glass. Yes, I admit my age is catching up with me, but I tend to use as big a monitor as I can find, and my normal text size is tiny like this. So when does a magnifying glass become useful? When you're doing a demo about carets and virtual space. Let me go ahead and we're just going to make this bigger. But I am going to use this caret, or the magnifying glass, which is still named Sniper. I mean, who has a sniper in a text editor, sniper scope in a text editor? Okay, we do. I don't think many people have that. And I did see a question. Oh, man, bear, pig, one. What does it mean when you say the editor is 3D? Well, you're seeing some of the 3D elements. We actually have 3D stuff going on. There is basically a video game underneath the text editor. The magnifying glass here is 3D. These pipes, these steampunk-like pipes are 3D. The globe is 3D. You can see the earth and the clouds. They're 3D. These flings, just as an example, these notifications are 3D. And these are being controlled by a physics engine underneath. So there's a physics simulation inside of Iron, which opens up an awful lot of possibilities. Here we're going to see the pipes explode, and they just kind of fall through the air and stuff. It's a little bit goofy, but it's also entertaining. And honestly, we don't know where will this lead to. We definitely know we'll be doing 3D skins. Our 3D menu system, I'm working on that now, and an early version of that will be present in the beta, the prototype. So that kind of, I guess, answers what does it mean by a text editor that is 3D. And it's like, we don't know all of what it will be used for, but we have some pretty good ideas. And if you can get a chuckle out of some of this stuff, and it's in the middle of the night and you're programming by yourself, and something happens that makes you smile, man, I'll program for another 10 minutes at least. Let those add up, and you know, you'll just be a happier programmer in the end. So I'm going to increase the magnification here. So that's pretty well magnified. Let's go ahead and, what else was I going to do? Oh, let's make the sniper radius bigger so we can just see things. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to have the sniper, the magnifying glass, track the caret. Okay, so if I'm just moving along, if I close and I start typing, let's go back to one pane here. Okay, this is for, you know, this, I don't want to make light of folks that actually have vision issues. For me, it's kind of funny, but for folks that, you know, you want really large fonts, this could actually be useful. It's difficult for me, I got to tell you. This kind of closeness, I'm not really set up for this, but let's see if I can remember. Sniper width. Sniper radius, that's what it was. Radius equals, let's make it tinier. That's not tiny enough. Let's make it 20. Just so I can see stuff. Okay, so it's really itty bitty teeny tiny white. Okay, now I'm laughing. That's a good thing. That's a happy programmer, and I hope you're laughing too. Okay, so let's not track the cursor just now. Where did that go? Yeah, it's difficult. Okay, we just turn it off. There you go, track the mouse. Oops. Track the mouse. So now we can turn it back on. True. Okay, so it's back on. It's just going to follow the mouse for the moment. Let's make the radius big again. Oh, I had one up here. Where was it? Yeah, it's right there. Sniper width. Radius. There we go. Because I wanted to change the shape of that. Sniper shape from equilateral to, I think I called it as in rectangle. Yes. Okay. And the width, let's make it like 800. Let's make it 1200. Okay, so now it actually starts to become a little more manageable. It's still kind of a silly thing, but for those who really have difficulty reading, we're hoping that, you know, this, as silly as it's done right now, will become actually useful. But it's going to be useful for our demo right now. And let's go back to tracking the caret. So wherever I type, this magnifying glass is going to follow along, okay? And the whole point was to talk about carets and virtual space, okay? And that does get annoying, doesn't it? I don't have a hotkey set up to turn that on and off just now. No, that would be a good demo. Oh, that's just funny. Okay. Sniper toggle equals false. All right. Let's go through this list. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the caret, and I'm going to, all right, let's just track to the mouse. It'll be easier. Where was that? Track to the mouse, and then we'll turn it back on. Oh, wrong one. Sniper toggle true. All right, so it's with the mouse, so I can move it out of the way. And okay, so carets and virtual space, and part of what we're doing is in Iron is we're using subliminal cues. We're using subliminal cues. That's a tough one for me to say. So you have information of what's going on. And in virtual space editing, let me find that caret. Oh, ooh, that's interesting. I think I know what that bug is. Let's just make it true. Gosh, when you go to show something, that's when it breaks, right? I think it's because I went off screen. Huh, interesting. Easily sidetracked. Squirrel. So anyway, we try to give subliminal clues as to what's going on. The file fading in when it's reloaded fresh. And here, same with the caret. You can see we use this box, and then when you get off into virtual space we're past the end of the line, it becomes a double box. Okay. So if I put spaces in here now and I back up, I'm no longer in virtual space. Okay, so it is kind of a way to give you just a slight clue of whether you're in virtual space or, you know, off the end of the line, or if there's a bunch of spaces out there. And we haven't implemented it yet, and of course we will. When you read and write your file, or just as on command, that trailing white space will get removed. Don't have that feature just yet. But another subliminal clue is when it comes to the shift. There's the shift key. So I've got this little shift, this cap locks just shows up. I'm holding the shift key down, I let it go, and it knows whether I'm going to, gives me a slight little indicator whether I'm going to be typing in uppercase or lowercase. See things fly off. Okay, so there's the cap lock. So I know I've got the cap lock on, and I can type, hello, what's the deal? And it goes off the screen. All right. And then here's kind of an oddity, and something I've always wanted is I've got the cap lock on, and when I type shift in another text editor, and this is going to be the demo, I've got the cap locks on, it will do the opposite. Okay. And that works for most folks. That's the way most editors work. And what I'd prefer is whether I have the cap locks on or the shift key on, is that I will get capital letters. Okay. That's kind of what I would hope. So let's turn the sniper off for the moment. And I'm going to hunt for, take a look for, I'll just search for, it was locked, caps lock. I'm going to do find in files. All right. So here's all the instances of finding files, cap lock. I'm looking for inverts. This is the one I'm looking for. All right. So this is the variable that I want. I'll close that. And I'm going to say cap locks shift inverts. And right now, I don't know if it's true or false, but I'm going to say it's true because we're seeing it inverting. And I'm going to set it to false. Okay. Let's turn the sniper back on. Okay. Switch files. And where's my cursor? Let's put it over the cursor there. Okay, so now I'm going to put cap lock on. Okay, so it's on and I can type stuff, and it's all caps. And now if I hold the shift key, that cap locks basically has precedent over the shift key. It doesn't make things inverted, in other words, from caps to lowercase. Okay, so this is the way I prefer it myself, is like, now if I hit the shift key, I mean to have capital letters, whether the cap locks key is on or not. I don't know if that's useful to folks. It's a tidbit, and it's one of those things, you know, I've said it earlier in this stream, is if you can customize and get your tool, whether it's iron or some other tool, to fit like a glove, you know, do it. And for me, this is one I've always wanted, is that the shift key doesn't invert the characters. But I'm going to put that back now. And we'll just, actually, I'll just leave it the way it is because I kind of like that. All right, let's turn the magnifying glass back off. the sniper scope. All right. What else was I going to show you here? Demo with the magnifying glass. The single box means you're in normal space. Get off to the end of the line, you're in virtual space. You can see the double box. Tabbing in virtual space. Okay. So when you tab, I'm gonna let's just turn the sniper back on. Okay. Where did it go? It's so zoomed in. It's pretty funny. Okay, so I'm off in virtual space. You can see I'm off in virtual space. And what I'm showing you here is that there's nothing out here since there's a double box. And when I'm just doing a left arrow, and it's like doing a shift tab. It's just backing up to the, and then it goes back to normal one character at a time once it's back in normal space. So if I'm spacing here, I added a bunch of spaces. You can see I'm in normal space. So as I move the mouse one character back, it's just moving one character back. So I know subliminally I'm not in virtual space. I got a bunch of blanks, you know. And again, that functionality, you know, you can turn that on and off. I don't believe I have that in there right now, but it will be. Because some folks would like to say, I don't care if it's white space at the end, just do the same thing. You know, go to the tab stop. And, you know, that's perfectly valid. Another thing we don't do yet is, which I think is handy, is kind of either with a different background or some kind of light dot to show you where the spaces are. We'll have that as well at some point. But what I was going to show you, I'm erasing the spaces so I'm still in virtual space, is that you can tab over and there's no, oh, it was supposed to be, there's no spaces added. Anyway, that's how it's supposed to work. Again, I've probably have it one way. Oh, no, that is the way it works right now. Yes. Okay. It's a funny thing about memory. When you come to talk about it, it shows up and other times it doesn't. Okay, well, the idea is that that's controllable when you're doing tabs, is that it wouldn't add those spaces in virtual space. That was the idea. That was the idea of this whole demo, and it's not that way. It will be. You know, I don't, you know, personally, when it comes to whether you have, you know, basically blanks or other white space, junk on the end of a file, you know, it doesn't matter. The compiler doesn't care. I don't see it. I don't really care. Iron works virtually the same in the virtual space editing. That's fine all the way up until the time you're working with a team and you're checking things in and out. If I inadvertently add, you know, spaces by tabbing, yeah, it's really not supposed to do that. And I check this file back in, well, that means everybody's going to have to check this file out, and they're going to have to recompile the file, and it's just junk white space that's put on the end, and that is a deterrent. That is a bad thing, and they'll look at it and they'll go, you know, in their merge tool or their their difference tool, they'll be going, oh boy, you know, I don't know, what's the difference in this line? It looks the same. Well, recompile it. It just has kind of junk space on the end. So Iron down the road will certainly manage dealing with trailing white space and being able to turn white space into tabs or spaces and back and forth and all those combos. In this prototype right now, Iron deals with tabs very poorly. You know, that's just kind of a word of warning when it comes to our beta. We are working on dealing with tabs in kind of downstream already. And boy, you know, I'm not a big lover of tabs, certainly from the development side underneath, because it makes things more difficult, but they sure are handy at times. I'm not going to go into that religious war. But Iron, certainly our goal is that, again, wherever you fall in that, are you a tabber or a spacer? Don't break up with your girlfriend because she's the other, or your spouse, your significant other, as happened in Silicon Valley, the think that's an HBO show. It's not worth it. Just use a tool that you can tailor so it works well for either one of you, or however you like to do it. I'll leave it at that. Backspace in virtual space. I'm just backspacing, and you can see it does go to tab stops. Okay. Again, just subtle difference here. I added a bunch of spaces, so we're no longer in virtual space. Come out here. So backspace will start going one character at a time. There's one character at a time. All right. Just little difference. And caps lock. We talked about caps lock. So somewhere in all of this monologue, I was going to say diatribe, but it's really a monologue and rambling. I believe I have caught enough information to describe carets in virtual space in 10 to 30 second little snippets. Maybe not. I'm going to end this stream. Again, thanks everyone for showing up. I guess I'll turn the camera on again since we're done recording. You can see my camera try to track my face. But I want to thank everybody, and I'm going to come back and do some more streaming either this evening or tomorrow and talk more about carets and selections and I was in the wrong tool. You know, moving toward cut and paste single selections, and then really the topic I want to talk about is multi-select. And, you know, to use multi-select effectively, kind of have to know these other things first. You have to be able to do single selections effectively. And then once you start using multi-select, this is kind of like, you know, stay tuned next week. You know, this is our cliffhanger. Multi-select is a cliffhanger. Once you learn it, you will never, ever go back. And Iron has multi-select functionality like no other tool yet in existence. I believe that's true. Not just hype. So that's our cliffhanger. Probably tomorrow and probably not this evening. I'll stream again. I wish I could say I could schedule it. I hope you'll join us, and if not, just watch the video. It's there on LiveEdu. Again, this is Iron. And let me take a look at chat. We had a few other folks join us along the way. Jonathan Torres, thank you for joining. Liuza Zhang, I'm certain I'm murdering that. I apologize. And Dzetko, and again, I apologize. I am a full-on American with no foreign language skills whatsoever. Well, maybe a little bit of Norwegian, which is an awful lot like English. But I want to thank you all for showing up, taking a look at Iron. We do have our beta coming up here in June. We're looking for folks that are willing to take on a prototype. We're very interested in getting people's feedback. You know, and one of our basic questions is, does Iron work for you? And at some point, we're hoping that it works for you well and works for you well enough that you would recommend it to others. It would be helpful right now if you could, in fact, recommend this streaming site and then our website to friends and share. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and here at LiveEdu. Search for Dark Viking. darkviking.com is our website. It's still in the makings. You'll see changes going on. You can't download the demo right now. The forum is not really active. We will once we release the beta, because we do want to gather those comments, and we're hoping that you'll be enthusiastic about a text editor that has a game engine underneath and does 3D and can load huge files and do it very quickly. More demos later, but let me bring this chat window over here, and I'm going to put up our website here, darkviking.com, so you can link on that. And then just rounds and rounds of thank yous to everybody. Let's call it a day.